Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Y-Ship Convention, Yokohama, home to Japan's pioneers, gateway to global business, open port city. My name is Asako Tanaka, and I will be your MC throughout the event. This event, which is organized by the city of Yokohama in partnership with Reuters Plus, will introduce Yokohama's initiatives to bolster innovation and discuss its strengths and expectations for collaborations with the global startup ecosystem from the US to Europe and Asia. Now, we held an event this morning also, and thankfully we had 100,000 views on Twitter. So please do share to your friends, family, if you are watching this online, and it is a pleasure to have you all participate in this session. Now, before we start the session, a quick housekeeping for those who are tuning in online today and require interpretation. Please be reminded to mute the source audio on the media player to avoid hearing double or language you do not wish to listen. As for those who want to listen to source audio, kindly disregard the language drop-down selector. Also, if your connection is interrupted during the webinar, please refresh your browser. Lastly, your opinion matters. So please help us to improve our future events by answering the questions in the survey box, which you will see on the right-hand side of your screen. So now we would like to move on to our session. So please welcome our panelists. First and foremost, Mr. Victor Mulas, founder, Quantum Visioning. Mr. Hikita Akihiro, co-founder and CEO, Global DX Inc., member of Yokohama Future Organization. Mr. Isamu Koyama, Japan Innovation Park GIA, co-representative director. Mr. Philip Vincent, Plug and Play managing partner, East Asia, CEO, Japan. And we also have Mr. Jarek T, Action Community for Entrepreneurship, ACE, Assistant Director joining us online today from Singapore. Now, we would like Mr. Mulas to kick off with a presentation on Greater Tokyo Startup Ecosystem. So over to you, Mr. Mulas.
Thank you very much. So we have a wonderful panel with organizations that are working very hard to bridge the connection between Japan, Yokohama particularly, and the rest of the world on startups. But before doing that, we wanted to provide you an overview of the startup ecosystem in the Greater Tokyo, where Yokohama is part of, and it's one of the parts that connect globally the most, especially because of its role with global companies. So very briefly, to get a sense of it, what the Greater Tokyo ecosystem has is a strong foundation on science and technology. In fact, it's the largest cluster in the world in science and technology, measured by the World International Property Organization. And this measures not only quantity of patents and publications, but also quality. And the R&D expenditure of corporations is one of the largest in the world, also by GDP, and also in absolute numbers. So you have a lot of science and research and innovation that is powering the startup ecosystem. Now, in terms of startup funding, the Greater Tokyo ecosystem is among the 20 largest VC investment and startup funding in the world. Actually, it should be a little bit higher if you account for the devaluation of the currency lately. So probably it would be around 5.9 million if you account for 120 yen per dollar, but it could be around 15 to 17. But that gives us a very small amount in terms of GDP, VC expenditure by GDP. So there is a lot of potential for this ecosystem to grow. And to grow much more based on the foundation of innovation and R&D that you have. Now, the Greater Tokyo ecosystem represents around 80% of all the startups and funding in Japan. So it's primarily most of the Japan startup ecosystem. And it is connected globally with the global hubs, especially on deep tech. This map represents the social connections among investment and startups around these hubs, and it's based on deep tech sectors of technology. And what you can see is that Tokyo is very well connected, particularly with San Francisco and a little bit with Singapore. but it has a lot of room to grow, actually. It can connect much more, especially because most of the connections are outgoing. It's investment in other ecosystems. So there is not just too much of incoming investment, but that's starting to change, and we will see that. In terms of the VC investment and startup funding, you can see from initial data that the funding is growing and keeping steady. What is interesting, what you can see on the right side is it is very stable. It's a growth that is stable. Even when there are crises and other ecosystems really have more fluctuations in terms of funding going up and down. In the greater Tokyo ecosystem and where Yokohama is part of, you have a steady growth and very little going down. Actually, it just stays steady when there is a crisis, right? And that's the pandemic one, and then the other one is the one we are having right now with the interest rates. In terms of what are the sectors behind the ecosystem, what you can see is the R&D sectors, the deep tech, are around 35 to 40% of the ecosystem, and that has been steady in the growth. So it's growing at the same time as the funding is growing, which means it's one of the strongest parts that this ecosystem has, which is very good because it's one of the most competitive ones. And then the other part you're starting to see is that the ecosystem has been traditionally dominated by domestic corporations and CVCs, but that is starting to change. You have more international VCs coming and more independent VCs. In the ecosystem. They are growing the fastest, as you can see, at a rate of 8 times in the case of international VCs. So that is also a very good trend that we are seeing, and part of why we're having this panel now. The other thing that we are seeing is that the ecosystem is moving towards larger stages of funding. That means the startups are growing. And this graph, let me explain it to you because it's a little bit difficult to understand, but this is the gap between the average funding per stage, and you can see the stage value of the startups below, below 4 million to 15 million, so on and so forth, until you get to over 250 million. And this is the difference between what Japan startups get and what international startups get based in 7 ecosystems, China, India, the United Kingdom, US, Singapore, etc. And this is the difference. This is where the startups in Japan get less. But what you can see is very little difference at the beginning until 15 to 40 million, and then it starts to grow, and it's really, really large when you get into the unicorn kind of acceleration. That is what the ecosystem is starting to get closer. As you can see, it's getting higher and higher, right? So that's good too, because that means the startups are growing and are becoming better. And this is in terms of the support infrastructure. And what you can see also is on the blue side, you can see accelerators, global accelerators that operate globally. And on the orange part are the ones that are in Japan based. And this is data from 3 years ago. So this is changing now. But what you can see is a trend, right? You can see especially with plug and play, and I'm very happy Philip is here just to tell us a little bit more about this. You can see that you are starting to get more growth, not only on the 1 million companies, but also in the 10 million. And hopefully we go into the 100 million soon. So that's something that we're starting to see. We're also starting to see other accelerators that we didn't have here that operate globally, like TechStars or 500, starting to enter the market thanks to the JETRO programs, and starting to also support startups. So that goes together with the corporate open innovation programs that we are going to see some examples here, and the connections maybe with Singapore during the panel. So that's the overview that we wanted to provide to you, so you have a good picture. And with that, should we go directly to the panel? I guess we go. So thank you very much, and we're going to start then the panel. Thank you so much. So we have a fantastic panel here of different organizations that are going to give us different examples of how do you make those connections, global connections between the ecosystem, or startups ecosystem here in the greater Tokyo area, but particularly with Yokohama. And each one of these organizations have a different model and a different way of operating, but all of them are successful. So we want to understand more about it. So the first thing I would like from the panel is to introduce yourself and introduce your organization, just to get a sense of what do you do on that. So we are going to start with Hikita, if you don't mind, and then we will follow the order.
thank you for introducing me. Thank you for, allowing me to come here today. And my name is Akihiro Hikita, and I'm, co-founder of Global DX. And then, can I, okay, this one. Yeah. Here you go. Okay, this is our company. I mean, we are kind of, boutique type of, consulting firm. And as you can tell, we are founding myself Japanese, and then also my partner, Adam, Australian. And as you can tell, we are kind of embody global open innovation because, 50% Japanese and 50%, Australian. And then we are just only 2 years old company. And then, we try to fill the gaps between foreign companies and the Japanese companies. So, we are trying to help this, develop this kind of global open innovation. And then, I grew up in Japan, till late 20s. So I'm purely Japanese, one of homogeneous Japanese. And then, Adam grew up in Australia. So we are kind of, example of the global open innovation. So, you can tell our success would be in some, proportional to some degree of the Japanese open global innovation. So please wish, we're going to be success, okay? And then this is, the kind of, value creation cycle. And now our aim is, let Japan back to the global value creation cycle, even software and then services. Because hardware, as you can tell, Japan was, fully involved in. Electronics more, not anymore, but cars, so Japan is one of the core, right? But talking about software and services, Japan is kind of isolated. So we try to bring the Japan back to the global, ecosystem. And then what we provide is to deliver the successful proof of concept between Japanese companies and foreign companies. So, Japan is, it's not language barrier exists, and also Japanese are a bit shy. So, to bring, to run the POC is the first step. And then we are, already, we, run the 20 POCs between foreign companies and Japanese companies. It takes time, but I believe somebody like us is required for Japan to run this type of things. Okay, so that's all so far. Then, I believe, and then Yokohama, I grew up in Yokohama, junior high, high school, all those 20 years, and still live in Yokohama. So I love Yokohama. Then Yokohama has to be the place to open up the starting point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think we can pass to the next speaker. We can go in order, but you have to.
Is it okay? Thank you. Hi, my name is Koyama, and I'm the co-representative director of Japan Innovation Park, GIA. What we do basically, we support startup companies as well as regular Fortune 500 companies and vice versa. Help them create a new service as well as we support POCs, basically based in Switzerland, Germany, and France as well. We also support welcoming and also market penetration for EU companies, Swiss company into JP market. Thanks very much. Is it too short?
Yeah, maybe you can explain a little bit what you do in terms of open innovation. What is the model to?
Sure. Our focus is basically Industry 4.0 and also energy sector, especially GX, the green innovation and also decarbonizations. One of the project, as an example, like we are supporting German companies and also the Japanese companies and coming up with a new service and the kind of product and for the market penetration towards EU market. At the same time, like the EU companies, they're also targeting JP market, so that we also support their market penetration as well as finding a partner, setting up companies. All in all, that's what we do.
All right, thank you very much. And Philip, can you go ahead now, and then we will go to Jerry, who is online. But
sure,
let's finish
sounds
here
good.
The floor.
Oh, wow, loud. Nice to meet everybody. Philip Vincent. I work at a company called Plug and Play. I'm maybe a product of open innovation. My mom's Japanese and my dad's American. So this is probably why I'm doing this job. But I've been working at Plug and Play now for almost 9 years. I started off in Silicon Valley for a few years before coming to Japan in 2017 during the summer to launch Plug and Play Japan, and I've been here since. And our base is in Tokyo, but we also have offices in Kyoto and Osaka as well. So hope to maybe share a little bit about kind of the localizing of the ecosystems through our offices in Japan and then maybe abroad. But just a quick introduction of what we do at Plug and Play. We call ourselves kind of an innovation platform. And what that means is we, of course, invest as venture capital firm. We've done 1,700 investments. We've done 14 of them in Japan. We have what we call 20 vertical themed accelerator programs or kind of industry-specific programs like energy or sustainability or retail or health. And then we match kind of large corporations with startups and kind of course, do the support between the engagement between those two entities. We have a wide network, many offices, and then many corporate partners that we work with. And one of the numbers here at the bottom right that we're proud of is 30 plus unicorns that we've been able to create out of our portfolio, out of our investment. And this is a quick snapshot of the offices that we have globally. As you can see, centered around the Americas, Europe, and then Asia. Nowadays, every city, every region essentially is looking for some sort of startup ecosystem strategy and trying to energize the entrepreneurship ecosystem there. So I think we have some sort of value that we can bring to hopefully any city, and we'll continue to kind of grow these numbers as well. In Japan, we launched in 2017, as I mentioned, in 3 different offices. We have 8 vertical or themed accelerator programs that we run in Japan, including fintech, insurtech, mobility, health, smart cities, new materials, energy, food and beverage. And we work with these 45 plus companies here, helping them kind of with their open innovation strategy as well as introducing them to startups. And so far accelerated 846 startups through our program. And what's unique and interesting about this is half of these startups are from Japan, and we help them here and hopefully able to then help them go abroad. And the other half is international companies that hope to come to Japan and connect with the ecosystem here. And this is a quick snapshot of some of the unicorn companies we were able to invest in. Of course, this is mostly out of Silicon Valley, but many international companies. And hopefully, very, very soon, able to find some companies from Japan that will be on this list as well. Many slides, but I'll keep it quick. We also do collaborate with a lot of government, especially the last year, as government is extremely bullish in trying to kind of push the startup ecosystem, scale it, and then globalize it. So hopefully we can kind of be a part of that strategy as well. Of course, we do that in many different regions, in Kyoto, Osaka, and Tokyo mainly. And we also work with universities as well, as you know, in terms of the issue of trying to incubate and produce more startups in Japan, because we always need more numbers to try to be kind of a player in that arena as well. Some case studies website, hopefully for you to get some more information, and that's it for myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. And now we're going to pass to our guest that is connecting with us in Singapore. So, Jerry, we pass the floor to you, and thank you very much for connecting with us.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing it. You guys hear me okay? The audio is okay?
Yes, we do.
I'm assuming. Great. Thanks. So my name is Jarek. I work for the Action Community for Entrepreneurship, which in short is called ACE. It's actually the first time I've been on many webinars. First time I was on the panel, the live session, so it's quite interesting for me. And I'm honored to be here among distinguished speakers and guests and co-founders. So a little bit about what ACE does. We are the only national trade association in Singapore that supports our startups in 3 key areas: the access to funding, to access market, and also to access talent. So 3 key things that we do for them. We sit in the heartbeat of one of the largest ecosystems in Singapore. Singapore, by nature, is not big in comparison to Japan. The ecosystem we currently reside in is about 700 plus startups for where we are situated in. The total amount of startups that we have in Singapore is looking something like 4,615. We have about 1,250 investors of about USD 10 billion. in investment size around this entire island, and about 280 incubators and accelerators, including Plug and Play, that we work very closely with in Plug and Play Singapore. And we have about 28 unicorns in the likes of a Carousel, Lazada, Sea, PetSnap, Razer, just to name a few. So some of the things that we support and we work with our local and regional partners is to really land and support the startups that want to come to the Singapore ecosystem. So some of the work that we do with Japan is to look into how we can support the landing of Japanese startups into the Singapore ecosystem, which the advantage where we become an innovation hub on a few things, where you can then access the ASEAN ecosystem, right? You come into a well-protected IP arena where you can even tap into our IPs, far the IPs in Asia, and even reach out into some of the deep tech founders and talents that we have here. So we do help the landing of a lot of foreign companies and startups to land here in Singapore, and we do the reverse. So we are hoping to also bring some of our startups into innovation ecosystem or innovation hub like the ones in Japan, where they reach out into the market for investments, for product market fit, for consumers, business needs, and talent, etc. So Singapore is kind of known in the Southeast Asian region for being a great innovation hub. I think there is a sharing in the morning by JTC, and they probably cover a huge part of it. So I'll very quickly just touch on the point to say that I think regionally we're number one, right? We're also very well protected in our IPs, and we're very proud to say we are kind of the top 5 easiest place in the world to do business. We can basically get you registered, set up as a business entity in less than 5 days with no hiccups. And of course, we do think that we are one of the top ecosystem in the Southeast Asia region as well. So some of the things that we really look forward to, and also understanding and sharing a lot with the panelists today on how the innovation system regionally can kind of work together, right? Be it Japan, Indonesia, Taiwan, Thailand, and Singapore, and kind of produce all this innovation around the ASEAN and the greater ASEAN region as well. So I'm very happy to be here today, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Well, with this, we finished the introduction, so we know each one of the panelists and really appreciate each of you introducing to the audience. We want to talk today about 2 topics particularly. One is the open innovation and how is it helping a global challenge, particularly climate tech, the climate change, and how it can contribute. And the other is also the global connection and the role also of Yokohama from your perspective. I want to start with the open innovation one, which is a concept that is very broad. It may mean anything that connects corporations with the startups, right? So each one of you probably have a different vision of that and a different experience. So I would like to start with, what is your perspective about open innovation? How is your philosophy as program or as entity? And what has been your experience here in Japan on that? And I'm going to start with Philip, and I'm talking a little bit more to give you a little bit time to think, but it's Philip, as he said, is one of the I would say one of the leading open innovation accelerators in Japan right now in terms of size and impact. So I would love for you to share also not only that philosophy, but how is it different from abroad? What have you learned during all these years you've been here?
Sure. And then maybe I'll just start talking and you can stop me and interrupt me at any point, because this is, like you said, kind of a very broad question and kind of hard to sometimes grasp in terms of what is really the value of open innovation or kind of what's important. Open innovation is very hard, and it's not a new concept either. And of course, open innovation now in the context that we're talking about is corporations collaborating with startups. But of course, corporations have been collaborating with other companies for a very, very long time, and Japanese companies have been doing that very, very well for a very long time. But I think there is this kind of new wave, of course, of startups, entrepreneurs, young companies that are innovating at a much faster pace than companies ever have before. So for large corporations, especially maybe large Japanese corporations, to kind of adapt quickly to working with these entrepreneurs and startups have been extremely difficult. But of course, the world trend is now, you see places like Silicon Valley or Singapore and all these kind of startups grow into large companies that now have a substantial market share in the regions that they're in. So there has been this kind of certain sense of urgency in Japan to kind of be able to do open innovation faster, to embrace the startup ecosystem much quicker than they used to before. And for better or for worse, Japan is an extremely stable country. And they have been scaling and growing stably for a very long time. And a lot of what open innovation or a lot of what startups, why open innovation and startups become such a huge part of the market is because there's a need in the market. And I always argue and talk about how that need in Japan wasn't necessarily there and isn't really still always there. So it's harder for startups to kind of penetrate the large Japanese corporate kind of conservative business world because it has been functioning well and very fine for a very long time. But again, that being said, even since Plug and Play has been here maybe during the last 5 years, a lot in kind of even our perspective coming into Japan has changed. We see kind of most large corporations have some sort of open innovation business unit or a new business development team or kind of business or people that interface with kind of startups at every single company. So you can kind of see that it's an important part of the strategy of corporations. You've seen universities now have entrepreneurship programs and kind of doubling down on education towards entrepreneurship because, like you pointed out, it's a very strong R&D ecosystem, but not necessarily a huge kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem. You've seen the kind of government, of course, come out in the last year and saying how important open innovation is and we need to be more competitive in the market. So there's a lot of great indications, some of the data that you showed, I think, that has really changed open innovation in the last 5 years. And for us bringing, for example, many startups to Japan, we would argue that it's an amazing timing to be a startup doing work in Japan because it's never been this much support towards open innovation before, I think. So I'll start and then end there.
No, fantastic. I think that was a great overview from your experience. And I want to pass it to Isamu, because you run a very specific program and it's in partnership with Switzerland, so it's a European country, which is also very advanced in science and technology, but it's a little bit ahead in terms of developing startups than in Japan. So it's a good collaboration there. So can you also give us your view on that?
Sure. What we're doing is basically we have a collaboration with Fortune 100 companies and building a platform together. And based on that, we welcome new technologies. That's what we're doing. And in terms of very mutual point of view, and looking at a Swiss market, for example, the Swiss market does not have resources, but they have knowledge. And it's such a tiny market. But why the brilliant researchers and also entrepreneurs they come to the Swiss market is several reasons. The basically payment is very high. First of all, so even a professional from Germany or from Austria, France, they come to Switzerland to make some profit. And the brilliant researchers. And then the big difference between Switzerland and others, actually, in terms of ecosystem, they are very flexible to POC. Number of POC, try and error they do, and then they make tons of investment into that. And if we see that the volume of investment for R&D and between Japan and Switzerland and others, I think they're heavily making a very heavy investment into R&D. That also keeps them very strong in R&D and also to get smarter people from all over the world. So systematically and also strategically, they are doing this. I think that's from my experience, shall we? So that's the reason why that's also attract like the big companies that come to the Swiss market. So I was thinking if we can do this in Yokohama, kind of thing. Thank you.
How is the interaction with the between the Switzerland companies or startups and the Japanese companies and startups? How is that working? How is that difference when you work on that?
Right. We've been supporting several big projects, cross-border projects between Japan and Switzerland towards EU, and for example, let's say data company, like from Japan to most of the big company, including a startup, seeing Swiss market as hub to reach out EU market. And like Switzerland also knows this, so they are kind of very nice way, like they're taking advantage of like this method actually to get like to attract more investment, to attract more smarter researchers into it. And from like the Switzerland like towards Japan, very attractive market, and but they at the same time they also face difficulties entering JP market, language barriers. Culture is different, and also fundraising point of view, as the Philip-san also like the Victor-san said, compared to US market and other EU market, it's relatively very low. But due to this current global situation, they are facing on EU side, they are looking for more stable market. So Swiss professional and also EU professional are willing to come to JP market to penetrate. That's a view from myself.
All right, thank you very much. Jerry, I want to pass to you because you are bringing a different perspective, right? A perspective from Singapore with it in a different market. So, but you also have been working on open innovation. So, can you give us also your view on what is the philosophy of open innovation that you are doing with your organization, and how is that evolving?
Right, absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely, and Vincent has really covered open innovation on large part. And again, Plug and Play is a close partner of us here in Singapore and ACE. And corporate startup innovation has been something that's ongoing for a very long time before it became such a huge buzzword, right? And ACE clearly works in the cross junction between corporates and university. That's also been highlighted. That covers startups, young startups coming out straight from graduation, and also, as Ismu has mentioned, research. IPs, deep techs is coming out from the university. So ACE kind of sits in, or Singapore kind of sits in the cross junctions between the deep tech and some of these sustainability, decarbs kind of startups that we are seeing as a movement. So if my research is correct, Japan does have some of this current innovation trend that has been observed, right? And on top of the IoTs, robotics and automation, and also with the aging population, there's healthcare. There is a huge movement within Japan on clean energy, sustainability that could be powered through the first three categories I mentioned, or AIs, MLs can be part of that as well. And this clearly, if you just focus on clean energy or sustainability, you will see that there is a alignment between what is happening within the whole Asia region, right? Also within Singapore, where we're looking in how we can push sustainability effort. Now, in my opinion and our work here that we've seen, the corporates are moving towards that for two key reasons. They are, of course, looking after the notion that there are carbon taxes in the areas of operations, in sustainability, carbon capturing, emissions, etc. And then the second part, they will actually kind of want to reduce their emission and let the customer know that they are making efforts towards that. So in the notion of those two, the corporates in Asia are also being observed to move towards that directions and needing technology coming from the startups or SMEs that have been working with to help with those capturings and emission. So then one part of that then sits between a research, universities, and some of the startups that's in this area that comes together to then create solutions or part of the solutions for the corporates. So I see a trend, even starting from Singapore, where the corporates are moving into looking at these technologies in sustainability and decarbonization, which is almost in the same alignment as the movement that I'm observing in clean energy in Japan, where I see there is a huge development in some of the clean tech, including your usual solar, wind, hydrogen power, right? And then it set a target that I believe there's a 2025 target or 2050 target for reducing the carbon emission. And it looks like we are kind of a little bit falling behind. So I would think that now corporates trying to bring in some of this technology will help to push it, right? And that will probably be the trend that we have observed coming here in Singapore and also the larger part of Asia.
Right, thank you so much. I want to pass it now to Akihiro because I want to ask you, we were talking before the panel a little bit about your experience here with corporates and the startups when you're bringing foreign startups and corporates in Japan. So maybe can you complement from your point of view what has been mentioned here?
Yes. Okay. So, I'm talking about, first of all, as you can understand, Japanese people speak in Japanese, communicate in Japanese. So all, economy is running in Japanese. That's the fact. And then, of course, English people, and then, some people speak English, but still not yet combined well. So it doesn't have to be, but Yokohama is a place, if, there is a place in Japan who, combined and creating chaos and then creating new value. That's Yokohama, because Yokohama used to be, first port to open up after 200 years isolation at a period of time. So as you know, the people knows about Japanese, which means, Yokohama people have some kind of memory, so which is easily recorded. So, I think, Yokohama, if Yokohama couldn't do it, Japan couldn't do it. That's what I think. And then, talking about open innovation, I think Yokohama ecosystem is functioning very well in corporate and then, private, but still domestically. So, but it's only a matter of time, I think, because all the large corporation expanding into the Minato-Mirai district has that vision of the past memory of Yokohama, then joining all the, global of innovation. That's just only a matter of time. That's what I think, I believe. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I want to go back to one of the things Jerry mentioned because I wanted to have it as a follow-up question, but let's continue the debate as the conversation as it flows, and it's about how to leverage open innovation and innovation in general, but in this case also with that combination of corporates and startups and maybe just the research of universities that was mentioned here. How to leverage that to help one of the largest challenges that we have right now, which is the climate change, right? And unfortunately, Japan is way behind on that in terms of clean tech, right? The US is the largest in terms of VC investment. Second is the EU, then it's China, then it's India, and very far on that line is Japan. And we need to catch up, right? Because we have the corporate goals, we have the willingness, but for some reason the market is not going there yet. However, I'm a little bit hopeful because when I was visiting Plug and Play 2 weeks ago, I saw that you have verticals that are coming from demand from your corporations to start looking at things like battery storage, energy, alternative energy, and things like that. So can you tell us a little bit more about how can we leverage that more, and what are the trends that you are seeing on that?
Happy to. Okay, there we go. Sustainability cannot be done without open innovation. I think that is kind of one of the industries and trends that is impossible for companies to do it on their own. It's impossible for countries to do it on their own. It's impossible for individuals to do it on their own. So I think the only way to solve the carbon neutrality problem by 2050 is open innovation, and kind of we've already discussed in the panel, we're very far away from there, and there needs to be so much more innovation that we don't even know about yet in order to be able to kind of hit these numbers in the next 20, 30 years. And it needs to start now. And, of course, sustainability, green transformation, GX, these are all kind of very, of course, broad words too, and it's just not one area. Of course, like energy is a big area, whether it's trying to produce renewable energy is a new area, and kind of the plastic waste in terms of sustainability, circular economy. So there's all these kind of challenges that is a global issue that is very much in need of open innovation. So for Plug and Play, for example, it's one of the largest kind of communities that we've created in terms of doing a sustainability focused program, and we started it out in Silicon Valley and now run it in various other places. What's been interesting to see is it's not only kind of a corporate to startup problem, of course, but we've kind of run workshops around corporates getting together from different industries to figure out kind of how to kind of jointly solve this problem as well. But one of the programs that we ran recently in Japan and what we've been doing globally is this program with a company called Alliance to End Plastic Waste. And this was kind of a very interesting program for us here in Japan. Japan's very unique too. Japan's actually extremely, it's pretty efficient in terms of recycling. Produces a lot of plastics. We always kind of joke with a lot of Japanese people that they kind of wrap like each snack with like so many layers of plastics, for example. But it's also recycled very efficiently. But that being said, even the recycled plastics is ended up being burned and then kind of thrown away, and then it's still kind of not efficient as the end. So there's a lot of kind of issues and challenges too that's specific to Japan, and because of it's an island country. So what we've been doing is kind of bringing most of the technology from abroad, one. So of course you mentioned there's not a lot of sustainability startups here in Japan, so we have to bring solutions from abroad. But luckily, Japanese large corporations, a lot of them are working on this and have been for a long time, whether it's solar or wind or energy companies, gas, oil companies. They're very advanced in terms of the technology that we have. So it's about pairing the right technology from abroad and then hopefully kind of pairing it with the right research and seeds that are happening in corporations and research and universities already. So I'm also hopeful, I think, that we can kind of produce good solutions in Japan, and we've also started to see a lot of startups in Japan as well that are working on local problems. So.
Oh, thank you. You're raising my hope, and so I'm going to continue asking the rest of the panelists. So my hope goes upper and upper, right? so Isamu, from your side, because you work with Switzerland, and they use and Switzerland is not the US EFTA, but it's around that area. They are actually one of the regions leading in clean tech and these solutions.
Yes.
And I believe you work on those kind of solutions. So how do you see that? How do you see Japan getting into a trend and contributing to this problem through the startup ecosystem, adding the corporate innovation that is already there?
I think from like a Switzerland market point of view and from our team, in terms of like a project point of view, our focus is basically data and the product carbon footprint, as we know. Whether the data for decarbonizations or like how much CO2 like we are reducing or how much energy we are reducing, like comes with data. Is that accurate or no? So we are focusing on the third verification organizations, they're working together to make the data accurate. And that's basically what we do and like focusing on in Swiss market with global players. So the trend, coming back to like your point, the trend is basically carbon footprint and data will be the key for in terms of like the city, ecosystem, like a branding point of view. How many or like how we can welcome these third verification organizations as well as like the data related organizations that we can welcome to the city. That's they basically already like Philipson said, like a big Japanese company, the global company, like focusing pretty much on like working on the decarbonization already. So the point is probably the data, how we handle with data.
Right. Thank you so much. And Akihiro, let me continue with the hope raising from your side, because you have the experience here with the Japanese corporations, which Philip told us it has a lot of innovation there ready, and you just need to unleash even more. So how do you see that interaction with the startups?
Yeah, let me explain a bit, maybe from different angle though, because now what originally I thought was for us to talking about global open innovation, inbound will happen first. Then maybe in Japan, some ecosystem which is like, mixed culture, like English and Japanese, both languages exist. And then, some of the people, young kids or, young startup, recognize, hey, in the same human beings, the same company. So we're going to go outside. That's what I thought that it happened. But actual fact, Japanese parliament and the government start to think about outbound these days, this year. So, but who knows? Maybe next generation might start to think about the open, overseas market from the beginning. At that time, maybe Japanese market shrink too much and too small at that time. I'm not sure of that. And so, I don't know how will happen. But if we are thinking of the outbound, clean tech and green technology is the one Japan has to concentrate on. That's I agree.
Well, thank you, because now I want to ask Jerry, because I hear you mention outbound. So now let me ask you from Singapore perspective, which are the areas on green transformation that you see more competitive coming from startups or even corporates from Japan that you think can work very well in your market or the area you work?
Right, absolutely. So I think we are now right in the centerpiece of defining why some of these technologies can be in. So ACE has created a community that is consisting of corporates, deep tech startups, government agencies, and research and university all coming together. The objective of why we do that is now we want to be sensing where technologies can move the piece in sustainability. And sustainability is a big word, like what Vincent said, it has many portions. And if you look at an example just like circularity, in closing the loops requires multiple solutions. So no one single body, nor companies or SMEs or startups can actually do that by themselves. It requires then a movement of combining all of this together with the notion of open innovations and collaboration. So that being one part. We are also in the belief that a lot of sustainability effort comes from deep technologies, which has a longer period of gestation, the longer period or longer runway for it to be ready. So to start looking into what kind of technologies coming from the deep tech arena that will help push the needs of sustainability is an important piece that we advocate for. So with that, then we see what is the kind of framework, regulatory framework, government policy that is helpful or maybe even in the way. So if you look at an example like the energy market, for any country, the national grid is quite a protected piece of asset. So in order for startups to innovate around that, then it requires a bit of unlocking in the policies, the governmentary framework and support that allows those kind of innovations, as an example. And then we come to recycling. Well, Japan has one of the best recycling programs there, and it's very strong for that too. There are, however, also areas that may not have been looked into in other parts of Asia that requires a advocacy around that. So we do believe that the future notion of circularity, sustainability will come from a push from the deep techs, combining with existing technology maybe, and then with corporates and SMEs willing to give that a chance and the patience that in the next few years, this technology will come to a maturity with the enough technology readiness level for commercialization.
Well, thank you very much. And you all make me very happy because now my hope has increased. So we know that we have a lot of technology and innovation there in corporations, and they're working on that. There is also on the in the universities. Thanks to, we are seeing also the trend that startups are coming to Japan to work with those corporations, and those are foreign ones, but also that Japanese startups are going abroad. So this is starting to move, and it sounds fantastic. So it's great. And we are seeing that in other areas of the ecosystem, how the interest is starting to grow here. So hopefully this goes higher. But one of the elements that seems to be crucial here is the global connection, right? So we have this flow and unlocks the innovation and how it works between those corporations, those startups, and how to do it. And many foreign countries also are a little bit ahead and can help us, and we can help other foreign countries, right? So on that, I want to go to the last question of the panel, which is, how do you see that global connection with Tokyo increasing? And you all have been with the witness of the greater Tokyo ecosystem increasing that connection, and broader Japan too, in terms of startups. Especially, I believe, when you started like 7 years ago, Philip, it was like very low in terms of that connection, and now it's growing. The same with your organizations, I believe. But I want to specifically target that with Yokohama, because Yokohama has been one of the cities that opened the first international, right? It was one of the harbors of commerce, international commerce that started. And it has a lot of global corporations here and a lot of foreigners living here. And it has a big role in the greater Tokyo ecosystem, because especially for open innovation. So how do you see that role and the importance of that global connection, but particularly the role of Yokohama in the open innovation and bringing these trends? So I'm going to follow the same order because it's easy and we end up here. So if you can start, Philip.
Sure. Yes, I think maybe I'll bring up a couple examples of what Plug and Play does right now in terms of kind of the globalization aspect, and then maybe bring it back to kind of my last comment with Yokohama. But I agree. I think Akihiro-san mentioned it's not like we want the startups to go global. We need the startups to be born global. They need to be thinking global from day one, from day zero, if they want to create a meaningful, large impact kind of within the problem that they're tackling. Not all startups, but many startups in order to kind of get that scale. And I think, again, the trend in Japan is that it is becoming that way. And one of the programs that we run in Japan in collaboration with JETRO and the national government is to kind of mentor and advise young Japanese, not young in terms of age, young in terms of infancy of the startup, to think how they can kind of tackle global markets. And we just finished a program where we supported 50 startups that was chosen kind of by JETRO in Japan that had ambitions to go abroad, and for us to be able to kind of help them in the first 3 to 4 months to have that global mindset, to understand the overseas markets, to understand the opportunities and the challenges that they will face if they go global. And we kind of need more of those programs, more of those entrepreneurs that are kind of thinking that way, because that's kind of the only way to kind of change the wave in terms of globalization for Japan. So we think that's a crucial program, and there's many other programs that's being done locally and on a national level that's kind of doing similar things. So hopefully that's something that increases. Another thing that we do that I'm quite proud of is our partnership with Kyoto University. And we kind of mentioned the difficulty of creating businesses out of research is kind of one big challenge in Japan. So what we did with Kyoto University is we took different research projects in the university, different R&D seeds, and we paired them with Japanese MBA students. And MBA students, of course, go all over the world and then eventually, hopefully, maybe come back to Japan. And that way, you know, they have the research and the CTO, and they have the MBA student and the CEO, and hopefully they can help each other for the first few months for the R&D project, of course, to get hopefully maybe created into a business for the MBA student to learn what it's like to be a CEO or help strategy for a startup. And what we've seen is we've had a handful of MBA students stay on with that company, actually create companies out of that program, and it became now a startup that is still young, but so far very successful. So one way to kind of be global is, of course, to send people abroad and for them to come back to Japan with that knowledge and then help the research that Japan's already good at and then kind of make that into a business. So those are two programs that we're kind of running that kind of we believe are some key important areas to kind of globalize the Japanese ecosystem. And for Yokohama to be maybe able to do that in a Yokohama way. So of course we are very familiar with the kind of very research oriented facilities or buildings, or many companies have their either headquarters here or a research base here. So there should be a lot of seeds here that is kind of ready to go global. So hopefully what we can do is kind of make those seeds open to the public and then hopefully match them with business creators and then maybe our panelists here to hopefully kind of create those meaningful engagements and projects that kind of become these larger, hopefully projects out of Yokohama. So I think it's kind of partnering with the research facilities, it's getting the universities involved, it's kind of deciding maybe a few areas, and I guess, today in terms of deep tech or sustainability or manufacturing, these areas or supply chain where Yokohama's already strong at, to focus and then hopefully create business out of that.
Well, thank you. Isamu, how do you see it from your side?
My side, yes. The image of Yokohama City is automobile, and lots of like brilliant manufacturing for that. Especially, but they're doing everywhere. So the branding, in terms of branding like, of the city is the automobile, especially EV sectors, and how we can do recycle in circular economy way, but it needs to be commercialized actually. Recycling things okay, but like if it doesn't generate any profit, then like it cannot be business. Very good part about like the Yokohama City, from my experience, is that they are very flexible to welcoming POCs, proof of concept. So not only doing the proof of concept, but like let's say like we set up a team, we work on the POC, and we do global promotion in each major countries. If we can do this, very nice. Not only we finish working on the POC, so I think we need to do something more about that. At the same time, as Hikita-san said, the Yokohama City has a port. Especially our team, actually, and also like from EU side, we are focusing on ocean tech. Yes, the technology with oceans. Not only the wind turbine, like the offshore and onshore, but also how we can utilize the current, ocean current, actually, to generate that kind of technology, or like a startup for the the professional. If we can welcome to Yokohama City, I think that can be a very big like promotion, global promotion. That's what I think.
Yeah, I love that one. It's a fantastic one, and there is a lot of sea here.
Thank you.
Jerry, how do you see that from your perspective and the connection with Yokohama? Because you are in an event with Yokohama, right? So you're familiar with the city, and probably you have interaction. So it would be interesting to see your perspective of Yokohama as a global hub for that connection, especially with open innovation and all the corporations that are here.
Absolutely. And I'll start from by saying that I think Yokohama is one of the best marketing too, because they have absolutely the best tire, Yokohama tire ever. So I think that really shows that joke aside, that really shows that Yokohama has a strong reputation for that innovation, right? And it will continue to play that part, I believe. And on the global local perspective, I feel if we look at innovation within Asia, just Asia to begin with, as a interconnected ecosystem, right? There are certain areas that certain countries are probably a bit stronger in, and where other countries may not be. And the resource sharing and the collaboration between the Yokohama cities and Singapore, for example, right, as a start, can actually address some of the existing issue. I'll move into a part that is an ongoing, I guess, concern for Japan as a whole, which is healthcare, right? With the aging population that is observed in Japan, there are a lot of need for the advancement in medical technology, telemedicine, healthcare delivery system, etc., to be part of the Japan as a whole. And then if I kind of imagine that and the technology we kind of have here in Singapore, there is quite a certain amount of health tech, elderly care technology that is coming out from Singapore, including from the deep tech areas. So one of the closest partners that we work with in this A-Star has actually a huge arsenal of some of these technologies that could be sort of connected with the Japan and Yokohama ecosystem, where then we can look into how this technology can be brought over, and then vice versa. So that is one part of that. And on the topic that we're talking about, sustainability and clean tech, which has a regard to deep tech, there are also very strong researchers, IPs coming from Japan itself, and I believe also so in Yokohama, that can collaborate with the technologies that we have here, the researchers we can have here, or even a spin-off and then land in Singapore and then the Southeast Asia region. And then we can do kind of the opposite. So that in in that terms, it kind of built out the entire ecosystem in Asia, and the technology and resource pool is kind of been interconnected. Clearly, we would think that Singapore, Japan can be some of the innovation hub into different part of the world, but we can bring in some of these technologies and then expand it outside of Japan and Asia in the near future.
Well, thank you. And let me finish with Akihiro. It's last but not least here, and because you have a special connection with Yokohama, so and you interact a lot with the Yokohama businesses.
Okay, I'm resident of Yokohama, right? So and grew up in Yokohama. So every weekend, Sunday, Saturday, or either day, I walk around the waterfront, the Yokohama with my daughter every weekend. So beautiful. I think I had lived in Shanghai and Hong Kong for years, but Yokohama is not inferior to any of them. So beautiful. So now I think red brick warehouse. Now people knows about it. Maybe change not at the moment like commercial area, but why don't you change and then open up all the startups, international startups, and also somebody Japanese startups which who are looking at the overseas, for example. Then maybe 40% Japanese, 30% Japanese, and 70% all over the world. And then government put the money into it and then let them alive for at least 1 year. And let's see what will happen. Something will happen. That's Yokohama. Yokohama has capability. I believe that capability Yokohama owns. So beautiful. So that's my proposal, because today's event is Yokohama City, right? By health. So maybe, please, Yokohama City, please try to do it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the encouragement and the ideas and to push into that. And I think we're going to have time for Q&A, and we're going to open soon. But before doing that, I just want to also give a shout out to one of the facilities that I think it's a leading one that is based in Yokohama, and that's the hard tech hub that is from heavy industry, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. I think it's one of the best facilities you have in Japan in terms of hard tech. If you're a startup in hard tech, you may want to check it out. I was visiting 2 weeks ago, and I thought it was very, very impressive to have that and all those facilities available. So there are many of these facilities around Yokohama where the corporations are taking the lead, but they're open. And I think that's also for startups to start discovering and start knowing how to work with those deep techs here. And it was very interesting because one of the goals was also the clean tech and sustainability and green transformation. So they have special spaces for that. So that was not advertising. That was because I really thought it was a really good facility. So with this, let me open to Q&A to anyone that has any question here in the floor or online, I guess. So the microphone is here. So if you have any question from the audience, please raise your hand. I'm talking to give you a little bit of time to think about it. But while you think about that, maybe I would ask the question that he has answered already, but what would be one thing that Yokohama could do to accelerate this connection with global startups and the corporations with open innovation? If there were one thing only, which one would you take? And you mentioned already one thing. I'm going to give you another try to say another one, because I'm going to start with you and go the other way around.
Okay,
but you can pass if you want.
All right, so I suggest maybe using red bricks warehouse, right? So, but why don't you plug and play or acquire some company run the program over there? That is nice, right?
Took my answer. You can repeat, and you have time to think about it until then. So Jerry, you don't see yourself probably, but if you see yourself, you're in the middle of the panel. So now it's your turn to answer this one.
And in that case, please ask us to help. Yeah, I support you. Right?
Here you go. It's even a partnership. Jerry, I pass it to you.
Probably a good idea for us to also go there for a program. We will encourage people to do it both ways, come over to Singapore, land here, and also maybe we can set up a program there for innovation. So I guess what we're really trying to say here is that if I want us for the Yokohama City is to open up a global innovation call for solutions, right? In some of the most pressing issues that Yokohama City wants to helm, right? This could be anything from sustainability, healthcare, elderly care, clean tech, what's not. Help them in a scenario spot there that has been mentioned, and invite global partners, global organizations, and hopefully us to be part of it. Bring our startups, bring our corporates, connect with your startups, your corporates, and your think tank, and make it a ecosystem, innovation hub that attracts the entire ASEAN and beyond ASEAN, Asia players to come in.
All right, then we have the second suggestion. Isamu, we pass it for you. The third one.
As I said, like ocean tech could be great to attract like brilliant researchers, startup investors towards Yokohama City. At the same time, Yokohama City is very strong, has many EV-related, automobile-related, manufacturing-related players. So I think that's two keys like for decarbonization. I think competition, global competition. We say everybody wants to decarbonize. Everybody wants to reduce the CO2. But how can we do the branding, global branding? In terms of the city is that very flexible to POC and welcoming the bilingual professionals like Philip-san, lectures everybody. At the same time, not only doing the POC but also commercializations is very important. So we call them like an integrator. So the integrate the connecting dot and dot, connecting professional and professional organizations. Such professional we gather in Yokohama, so that Yokohama can stand out for the rest of the city. That's what I think.
There you go. Let's do a global competition on blue tech or ocean tech and start solving problems. That sounds fantastic. Philip, we gave you time to start thinking about your answer. Are you ready now?
I think so. Besides plug and play, hopefully being more involved with Yokohama and maybe through events or partnerships or programs, would love to explore doing something more with a big ecosystem like this. I'd say startup visa. And something that Japan historically hasn't done a good job of is making it easy for both domestically and internationally start companies. It's a lot of paperwork, looking for an apartment, looking to open a bank. It's not that easy. And even for myself coming to Japan, I'm Japanese and I had a really hard time. So I think if Yokohama can somehow brand itself the most startup friendly city in terms of being able to create a company, bring a company, and somewhere that companies can grow here and stay here and live and eat and be entertained here, then I think it has a good chance to be a really big startup ecosystem.
That sounds great. So that was a good menu of recommendations, and I hope all of your organizations get more engaged also with Yokohama as this continues. I'm going to give one more opportunity of the questions from the floor, and if that doesn't happen, probably we close the panel after that. So this is like the auctions. At one, at two, oh, there's one. Save the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for this great panel. Great insight about the startup environment in Japan. I also, myself, my name is Ibrahim. I'm a startup co-founder in Japan, not in Yokohama, in Shibuya, but close enough.
Nobody's perfect. It's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. So as Philip was mentioning about the startup visa and everything about that, that was a nightmare for me. And without a Japanese partner for myself, I could not imagine doing all the paperwork, like notary office, going to legal affairs bureau, like take on like articles of inquiry, all those stuff. It was so painful. Without the Japanese partner, I don't know how I would survive. But there's one other thing that I'd like to ask about. How are we going to make Japanese bank institutions easier on startups to open bank accounts so that we can start getting transactions? What do you think about that? How we can convince them that we are not going to do some corrupted business?
Anyone has any answer to how to use the Japanese banking, or we just leave it at hopefully it will happen eventually?
I'll talk to them.
But I've heard, Shibuya is, very, easy to open up the bank account. One of the cities easiest. That's what I've heard, though. It's still very difficult.
It was still difficult. It was still difficult, and I didn't apply myself. My Japanese partner applied.
Really?
SMBC rejected us for corporate bank account.
So, yeah. Even for Japanese right now, these days, open up the bank account is not easy. But in that case, forget about all the bigger Japanese banks. Just ignore them. Just, working with
Ozora is the best. We got them.
just maybe internet bank or newcomers, work with them. That's the only solution.
There you go. You get the solution there.
Yes,
go
but
with
still.
the startup banking.
We had to go through a lot of hard time for that, right? And a lot of people probably, they see these restrictions and it's like so hard to enter this environment. What am I going to, okay, let's just go for other jobs.
Thank you, and that's good to learn more about that experience. And I think that's not only in Yokohama, that goes beyond that. But it proves too that the entrepreneurs that come here, they are very resilient and they really want to cooperate with the ecosystem. So it's fantastic to have entrepreneurs like you for counterparts and the corporate counterparts here in Japan or the Yokohama rest of the ecosystem, because you really believe in the ecosystem and you're here with a purpose, actually. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone through all this. And I feel your pain with the question. So this is a fantastic asset, and we appreciate that, and we hope there are more. And hopefully, you can also interact with those kind of startups that are here, and we create better the ecosystem. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to the panelists. It was fantastic to have you here tonight. Thank you, Jerry. You connected online. And
Thank you.
Thank you for being there in the screen. And thank you to the audience for being here and the questions. That was our panel today. I hope you enjoy. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you ever so much, Mr. Mulas, being a fantastic moderator, and all the panelists on stage. Now, it was really striking when I heard Mr. Hikita say that Yokohama creates chaos, because chaos creates Big Bang. Big Bang creates Earth. You never know what Yokohama is going to create next. This is really exciting times, really exciting age. Let's just hope that the banks will open up a little bit more to their entrepreneurs. Now, thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining this session. We would like to conclude this panel session. Now, lastly, we would like to invite Toru Hashimoto, Director General of International Affairs Bureau, Yokohama, on stage to give us a closing remark.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for staying with us until this time. And I really enjoyed the panel discussion with Victor's very humorous interaction and lots of real exchange about talking about apartment banking system and all those things. It was very stimulating in the afternoon. And also this morning, ambassador from Tunisia and Ukraine came over and talk about diplomatic bilateral tie with the city. Of course, we have a relationship with a country, but city, this size, the big size, 3.7 million population with a diverse people here can do a lot in this world these days. So today, we started this convention, Y-SHIP. This stands for Yokohama Showcasing Highly Innovative Pioneers. Yeah, but we can interpret this as high impact project, high whatever potentials, so that this ship just being crafted today. I don't see the size yet. I don't see the speed of this ship, but at least I can see that the crew members, the partners who will be on board today, and this is really the good start as a real face-to-face interaction. And amazingly, I heard a number like 120,000 access. 120,000, right? Yeah, I think there's some mistake, no? We better check. Yeah, 120,000 looking at us from all over the world. If this is a real number, this is so great, but I better check with you right later. But at least a few thousand people really listen to us. and it is a really good start. Next year, fiscal year from Japan, start with April, that we will continue some series of talk like this, and also that we will continue networking with you guys, and also who chose to live in Yokohama. And we hope to have a larger convention called the Y-Ship around November next year, and so that we will create it as a big convention to let Yokohama known to the world, attract more talent, ideas, proof of concept, many things, good things. I had a talk with one of the bank. I don't know that bank. They said Bank of Yokohama. I don't know in Japanese name which bank it is, but they said, wow, we have to do a lot. They are talking about that. So at least that we give some stimulation to some audiences. And again, this is a really good thing that we have a real face-to-face interaction. Thank you very much for today, and we will continue improving our living environment for foreign origin people as well. So let's meet again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Hashimoto. Now, with that, we would like to conclude today's event. We hope that you all found this session meaningful and interesting. Now, as Mr. Hashimoto has mentioned, there will be more events like this coming up. So please help us improve our events by answering to our survey. So to those of you on ground, you can see a QR code in front of you. If you could answer to a couple of questions in the survey, it would be fantastic. And those of you online, please help us improve our future webinars as well. So you will find a survey box on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, and from 2:50, that is about 5 minutes time, until 4 o'clock, we will have a networking session here at the same venue. You will be able to connect with key persons from Yokohama Innovation Community, as well as startup support companies from Europe. There would also be startup pitch stage and exhibition, as you can see at the back of this room. So please do join the networking as well if time allows. Now, thank you ever so much for participating in today's event. We would like to see you again in the near future. Thank you.